Welcome. I am Samantha Salmon, certified integrative nutrition coach and brain health licensed trainer. And today is an episode of a series I started on Instagram called Brain and Body Bookshelf. But Instagram Live has been giving me issues, so I'm going to just be recording the videos and posting them here, also sharing them on my podcast because I think this content is going to be very helpful to everyone, regardless of your favorite way to learn new things. Some people love to hang out on Instagram. Some people love to hang on YouTube. Some people love to listen to their podcasts on their walks, their runs, during their workouts, whatever may have you. Just to explain for folks who aren't aware of the Brain and Body Bookshelf, it's a series dedicated to exploring fascinating nutrition information to support the health of the brain and body overall. In each episode, we'll review and discuss a book that explores topics such as neuroscience, psychology, health, fitness, and more. Join us as we delve into the latest research and insights on how our brains and bodies work and how we can optimize our physical and mental health for happier, more fulfilling life. And today is a really interesting book by Deepak Chopra called Abundance: The Inner Path to Wealth. I have it here, the library version, because I just grabbed it from my local library. They had it on display on the main shelf for all the new books. But I wanted to talk about it today because I find this book in particular to be really quite interesting. And I have a link in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this so you can learn more about the book. But today specifically, we are honing in on something that Deepak says that I think is very poignant. It's something I completely agree with due to my personal experience with this. But first, let me start here. Stress is causing obesity. And I don't think this should be a shock to anyone because what I've noticed in my coaching practice, like talking to people, coaching folks, is that unhealthy eating patterns, the folks that listen to me and that are in my ecosystem, they're pretty much aware of what they should be eating to be healthy, what they need to eat and what they need to do for their healthiest lifestyle. But there are obstacles in the path. And a term that keeps coming up a lot is comfort food, comfort food, comfort food. But we only need comfort food if we're feeling discomfort. So where is the discomfort coming from? And for many people, the discomfort is coming from other people causing stress in our lives. It's either showing up at work, where other people are causing stress for us at work, or in our homes, within our families, within communities. So I want to dig into this a little bit more, specifically in the work avenue. In terms of the home piece, we're going to be talking about this on a webinar I am doing tomorrow, actually. So hopefully you catch this in time. For folks who register, they will get the replay. Tomorrow let me check the date to make sure that not the date, but the actual time. I forget the time. Yeah, December 14th, tomorrow, Thursday, December 14th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm doing a webinar called Brain Health Unlocked, Mastering the 11 Keys to Boost Your Brain Reserve and Combat Stress. And basically, we're going to be talking about how to deal with prickly personalities, what I call porcupine personalities, in our families that trigger us and cause so much stress and disruption to our nervous system that we are searching for comfort. And usually that comfort is in the form of refined sugar or oils and processed foods and things of that nature. Is it so much that the food is the problem or the people are the problem? Or is it us that's the problem? But this is the genesis of the conversation. We're going to explore all of this tomorrow, but today I want to hone in on the workplace piece, because I think work is crucial. We spend so much time at work, and for it to be a place of stress that's actually driving us to unhealthy habits is really quite interesting, right? There's a book I read, I think it was Vicky Robbins or something, Your Money or Your Life or something, Your Money, Your Life, something like this. I can't remember. But in the book, she talks about how people are working jobs they don't enjoy, and then they spend a lot of that money to basically cope with that job. So it's as a reward for getting through such a rough week, and every week is rough. You spend, and then you look and you're like, oh my gosh, where's my emergency savings? Where's my retirement fund? I have no investments. I can't live like Ramit Sethi says, my rich life, because there's no money here, because I've spent it. Why am I spending it? It's because I'm in such a stressful, unhappy work situation that this money is being used just to help me make it through the day, the week, the month. And which is quite interesting, and food is being used in that way as well. Food is being used in that way right now, and we have an obesity crisis right now. I'm gonna share a link that was posted on Psychology Today at the top of the month, where they were saying that obesity is a major public health issue affecting 42.4% of U.S. adults. This is not a surprise. It increases the risk of numerous diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and chronic inflammation. Again, we know this. New research suggests obesity also correlates with lower brain volumes in regions like the hippocampus, posterior cingulate, and the precuneus, which, apologies, I don't know what the precuneus is. These areas are impacted early in Alzheimer's disease. A study analyzed MRI data from over 10,000 middle-aged adults, so this is a large-scale study. Those who with more body fat, especially visceral fat around the organs, aka the midsection, right, were more likely to have reduced volumes in the brain regions. Visceral fat leads to increased inflammation, which can cross into the brain, damage gray matter regions. Gray matter basically is like the more gray matter you have, the better cognitive abilities you have, the more memory you have, this type of thing. And it contributes to cognitive decline. Subcutaneous fat, this is the fat that's just under the skin, showed correlations, but it's less inflammatory, which is basically what I've been saying. If you attended the Thrive Through Food Summit, worrying about what you look like is not so much it, right? Because you can have subcutaneous fat and not much visceral fat. The subcutaneous fat is kind of like, you see the cellulite and stuff like this, and this stuff is whatever. But that visceral fat is the kicker, right? Because it's taking you down mentally. As psychiatry patients have 50% higher obesity rates, likely partly due to the psychiatric medications. This connection between obesity and brain health is highly relevant. Overall, patient health should include diet, exercise, and lifestyle changes to support mental health. Yes, because what our body, like the stress our body's going through, affects the health of our brain. So steps to reduce obesity may help to lower Alzheimer's risk, slow cognitive decline over the long term, and this study in particular provides more evidence that obesity can negatively impact both physical and neurological health. And I will share the link to that so you can dive deeper into it if you want. But this is very relevant to today's conversation because we see, I'm making the point, the link here. Obesity is affecting the brain, and when the brain is affected, right, our whole life, because the brain is managing everything we think, feel, and do. And chronic stress is keeping the fat on. It's like a vicious cycle. You have the chronic stress, it's affecting the brain, it's keeping on the fat. That fat is affecting the brain, causing more stress to the body. And if you find out that the source is actually coming from work where you're spending most of your time, then this is worth doing some self-reflection and some deep planning. And right now is December, so now is a great time for planning and setting intention for 2024, the life that you want. I love the question that Ramit asked, what is your rich life? And the question that Deepak is asking, right? With this book, Abundance, the Inner Path to Wealth, he's talking about living a wealthy life. It's not necessarily money, although money plays a piece, right? You need to be able to afford the life that you want. But there's a lot more to it than that. Today, we're only talking about the piece where Deepak goes into a list of the satisfying work conditions on page 26 of his book. So if you have the book, you can go to page 26, and he has a list here. And I think this list is brilliant because I compared this list to my personal experience, and I 100% agree with this list. He says job satisfaction rises if your workplace gives you certain key things. Money, but only up to a certain point. And I'm going to pause right here with the money piece because he put money as the first thing. The Blue Zones group, right? Dan Buettner's organization, they're well known for the Blue Zones, how to live to 100, all of this stuff. Their work looking at the areas where folks are living to 100 and beyond and trying to decipher what it is about their lifestyle, why they live to 100 and beyond. Now, they also wrote a book called Thrive, which I've talked about a while back, and I'll share a link for that book too if I can find it in the description. And in that book, Thrive is pretty much focused on happiness. So in these areas where people are living the longest, or actually he looks at places where people are living are the happiest, right? So it's different areas, but where people have rated themselves the happiest, because happiness is really subjective. And so they have to rate themselves. And this book, though, was really fascinating, Thrive. And in there, he talks about money too, and says that I think it was like $73,000 to $75,000 was the sweet spot for happiness. If you have more than that, you're not gaining any more happiness, and less than that, you don't have enough to live or something like this, right? Now, shortly after that book came out, I think it was the Black Women's Health Imperative or one of those organizations that were focused on Black women. I'm pretty sure it was the Black Women's Health Imperative, but it could have been some other group. I can't remember. But they had a report that they put out, and it talked about how Black women in particular need 6 figures in order to be happy, which was really interesting. So you have over here, Dan Buettner's group is saying 70-something thousand, but this group is saying Black women need 6 figures. Again, happiness is subjective, and there's a lot in here as to the why. We could spend hours deciphering the why behind these things, but let's take it at face value. Okay, 100,000. Now, you have right now in the conversation, Black women, there's a lot of Black women talking about, you could stay over here in America and hustle till you die to make $100,000 and basically just be stressed out of your mind and not live your happiest life, which is that's not an abundant life. That's not right. That's not your living your best life. So the alternative would be to go leave America basically and live someplace more affordably so you don't have to kill yourself and give yourself up to capitalism. So it kind of lessens that burden of that $100,000. And an interesting thing that I've noticed, right? It's not just Black women who are in this wave, this new trend of exodus. Let's just leave America. It's going to be way better, more affordable to live elsewhere. But white men are also doing this, leaving the country for the same reason, although they have nuances for their logic, right? Black women over here leaving, white men over here leaving America, both of them for financial reasons, but with a lot of nuance. I think the start of the whole Black woman exodus conversation had a lot to do with politics and who's in office and things like this. For white men, I'm pretty sure it's connected because politics affects finances in this country. It affects the economy and different things, and they're leaving for almost similar reasons, but there's a little bit of nuance and difference. But this is a really interesting and fascinating turn of events that, what where we're at right now as Americans, and the fact that people are really opening up to this idea that we don't really need to stay here. America's not the end all be all for happiness and satisfaction. So I just wanted to point that out, and that's quite interesting. So when we think about satisfying work conditions, and Deepak has it here in his book where he says money, but only up to a certain point. And that certain point, there's a lot of people having conversations about what that certain point is, and it's very subjective based on you, your situation, the life you want to live, where you're going to live it. So then he goes on in his list: low stress. Now, where can you make, as a Black woman, going off of that number of the 6 figures needed for the Black woman, where do you have low stress making 6 figures? The only way I could see that you could do that is working for yourself, but it's definitely not going to come overnight. That I know for sure. That doesn't come overnight. Then he goes on, job security. Again, there's no such thing as job security, but if you're an entrepreneur, you are securing yourself. You're securing your job, basically, by being nimble, quick to pivot, catering to the needs of the market at the time. So you can only, from my perspective, only as an entrepreneur can you really ensure job security. As an employee, regardless if you're working for the government or wherever, there's no such thing. Plus the fact that it's causing a lot of stress in people, right? A lot of this is causing so much stress that folks are being sent to the hospital because of stress from the job. That's how serious it is. Deepak goes on, he says, good relationships with coworkers, a sense of being heard, and of course, what's happening in a lot of work environments is that people do not feel like they're being heard. Even folks who have been on the job for decades, they feel like they have no agency. As an entrepreneur, you have a ton of agency. Everything is on you, right? You're making all the decisions. Loyalty and support from higher ups. A lot of folks are not feeling like they're getting that loyalty and support. The chance to care for others, opportunities for advancement, positive company culture, challenging daily tasks, and being good at your job. So this is a list in Deepak's book where he's basically measuring satisfying work conditions against this list. These are the key things, he says, and I 100% agree. Now, as you look at this list, money, low stress, job security, good relationships with coworkers, a sense of being heard, loyalty and support from higher ups, the chance to care for others, opportunities for advancement, positive company culture, challenging daily tasks, and being good at your job. How does your work situation stack up to this? Would you consider it a happy and satisfying workplace? And if it is for you, then great. Then that means your work is not causing you stress, hopefully, and is not triggering unhealthy habits. So kudos to you. Awesome. If you find that it is, then I would definitely take the time now to do some self-reflection and really think, because you have two paths that you can take. What we call in my line of work, the fork in the road. So you can go one direction and stay, or you could go the other direction and leave. Now, if you stay, what does that journey look like? And how can that journey be happy and more joyful for you? Because when you are having a perceived stress, your body is physically making hormones, right, that are damaging things. Now, if you're a menstruating woman, for example, cortisol, or not even just a menstruating woman, this is like every woman, every person. High cortisol means it's creating high insulin levels. So if you don't have type 2 diabetes, you're now more leaning in that risk. Of course, there's things we can do to prevent and avoid this situation with our diet and lifestyle. But if your diet and lifestyle is not perfect, and that lifestyle piece is keeping stress low, then you're now in some dangerous territory. Not to mention that, but also it's affecting, if you're a menstruating woman, your more susceptible to having really painful periods, very heavy periods, right? Because of hormonal imbalance, because the perceived stress on the outside is affecting us physically on the inside. And when it comes to releasing excess fat, almost every single person that I work with, this is their goal, to release excess fat. You want to hone in on those foundational things that's causing the stress. So if you are not going to leave that stressor, how can you make it happier and more joyful? That's what you need to reflect on and journal on. The other road is leaving. Now, if you leave, don't look at that through rose-colored glasses, but look at what does that look like exactly for it to be happy and joyful? And what is that going to expect and demand of me? And will I be happy and joyful doing those things, given the situation, right? And really get clear with you, because the only person that can really make that decision is you. This is what adulting is. We're making hard choices every day to live our best life. It's not just handed down to us. It's not handed down to us. We have to work for it. So yeah, if you have some time, you can actually look at this list in Deepak's book. I thought this list is brilliant, and it's a great metric to look at in this time of self-reflection. And if you want to go deeper on this whole topic, more on the home front and our family relationships and things like that, I look forward to seeing you at my workshop tomorrow, my webinar, Brain Health Unlocked, Mastering the 11 Keys to Boost Your Brain Reserve and Combat Stress. We are going to be diving into all of that tomorrow on Zoom in a meeting. So take care. See you then.